Okay, I want us to look now for the volume of a triangular prism, and I want us to review something about the area of triangles before, because it's important we remember the relationship of a triangle and a rectangle. And so here's what we have here, if we can get past my really bad drawing. We've got a right triangle. You can see the right angle here at the top where I've put the right angle symbol. It's kind of distorted because this is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional object. But what we have is a right triangle, and if I turn it on its side, you would see it actually has a height of 10 centimeters, and then it's also 10 centimeters this way. This is what the top of this prism would look like if we turned it. It would be a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter right triangle. And what I want us to recognize about right triangles is that a right triangle is actually half of a rectangle. And so if we want to know that, for example, if we want to know the area of this right triangle, well, the area of the rectangle, which this one would actually be a square, would be 100 square centimeters. 10 times 10 is 100. So the area of the triangle would actually be 50 square centimeters. Okay? And so that's good because it lets us know, we already know that if we wanted to find the volume of a rectangular prism, we would do the length times the width times the height. Well, here's the great thing about the volume of a triangular prism. A triangular prism is actually just half of a rectangular prism, right? This would be the same thing as if we had a rectangular prism that was 10 by 10 by 15. The only difference is, since it's a triangular prism, it's actually half of it. So to find the volume of a triangular prism, we'll just find the volume of what it would be if it were a rectangular prism. If this were a rectangular prism, then we would just simply say that it was 10 times 10 times 15. And the only difference now is we take that times 1/2. It's half times the length times the width times the height. And so the easiest way to do that is actually half times 10 is 5, 5, and then 10 times 15 is 150, so it's 5 times 150. 5 times 15 is 75. And there's a 0. So it's going to be 750 cubic meters, because we always put cubic meters when we're doing volume. And so that's how you do it. It's actually just half of the same thing. Now, I want us to take one that's orientated a little bit differently. We're going to do one more. But really, once you can do the volume of a rectangular prism, which is just the length times the width times the height, then a triangular prism is only half of that. Let's take a look at one more. Okay. So we look at this triangular prism, and you notice way more measurements. And there's a reason there's way more measurements written down, because the triangle here is not a right triangle. If we just pulled this triangular face off, we would actually see that it was 8 centimeters at its base. And this side is 5 centimeters, but the height, which the height is not a side of a triangle, it's not a right triangle, it's the distance from the highest point straight down to the base that forms a right angle. We call that the perpendicular distance. Perpendicular just means the segments form a right angle. Its height is 3. And this goes back to area of a triangle. If it's not a right triangle, we don't multiply the sides to find the area, but we actually multiply the base and the height. In other words, if I form this pink rectangle, this pink rectangle is 8 times 3 to find the area. And the triangle still takes up half of it. It always does. And so the area of this triangle is not 1/2 times 8 times 5. It's 1/2 times 8 times 3. And so the key when you come to a triangle like this is you find the triangular face on a triangular prism like this. The triangular face, you don't do the sides times each other. Remember, it's half of a rectangle, but the half of a rectangle is an 8 by 3 rectangle, not an 8 by 5. So it's actually 1/2, because when we do a triangular prism, it's half of what a related rectangular prism would be. And then the base is 8, and the height of the triangle is 3, and then the height of the entire prism is 10. And so if we multiply these numbers together, it'll give us the volume. Half of 8 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 10 is 120. This has a volume of 120 cubic centimeters. If that's difficult for you, we'll work on that some more in class. Triangular prisms are a skill that uses it uses the area of the triangle, and then it uses the volume formula. One of the keys to recognize is this: if you can ever find the area of the base of a figure, and you multiply times the height. That'll help you on all prisms, and that's actually going to be very helpful when we get to cylinders in the next chapter.